it's pretty simple when you think about it. Like if you're paying for a service, the last thing you want to do is feel like you have to chase for it. So that was something that we agreed, like if we can stop clients chasing us for like, hey, we said we'd do this, clients really get this sense of like, they've got this, we're on top of it. Like I don't miss dinner and I don't miss bedtime, like golden rules. I don't miss gymnastics on a Wednesday afternoon, and I can design my calendar around this so that my business allows me to do it.
Everyone, this is Kyle Hunt with Agency Operators Level Up, where we help agency owners to build $5 million a year agencies, where we remove founders as the main bottleneck in their agency. And today's guest is someone who's been on an incredible journey with me over the past few months. He has a UK-based agency, and he's not only scaling his business, but he's also prepping for his third child. So congratulations on that. And he is Andy Gray, the founder of the Graygency. Andy, welcome.
Thank you for having me on, Carl. And also, like, thank you for all the help over the last couple of months. It's been a game changer for us.
You're welcome. It gets me fired up. Like, it's the best part of my day to help you out. It's awesome. So Andy runs a paid media agency, actually full service. So they do paid media, email, creative, all the things. And he works specifically with e-commerce brands. And really the thing that I love the most about working with Andy is his willingness to implement things. And he'll say it in our one-on-ones all the time. He's like, I just do what you say. Like I just take what and I go do it. And he doesn't have too much overthinking. He just executes. And I love that. So with that, Andy, before we dive into the transformation of the Graygency, let's start at the very beginning. And what was your thought process, or what made you start the Graygency?
Good question. So I think going right back, it was all about actually wanting to have independence and my own time. So I'd spent a lot of time training and racing triathlon. Triathlon was super expensive as a sport to do. And I figured out that the best way to get like a 10,000 pound bike was to actually be really good at like branding myself, and that eventually brands would come and give me a free bike. So that was like the initial like objective with it. And then over time, like I was really average at triathlon, but I was really good at social media. So I had like these great sponsors and was sort of getting asked to do more and more work with social media. And then eventually there was like a tipping point where I was like, actually, you're making money from this and it's more money than you would make racing. But then like from that, the freelancing started, and then typical story of a freelancer where you get more work than you can handle. And then all of a sudden you start to build a team. And I probably made a lot of mistakes in terms of the early days of building a team and letting ego drive how I approached building a team. So it was very much about like, how do I get lots of headcount so I look more impressive? And how do I get the nice office so that my ego is fed and the external appearance is bigger? And then I started to realize that actually like that's not the way to run an agency. And then I kind of chopped and changed models. And yeah, the thing that we've always had is like an effort and a focus on doing great work. So like, I think that probably to the detriment of our own growth in some parts, where we just went over and beyond because we're so passionate about this, that, the sort of the commercials and building of an agency came second to just like nerding out on client strategy.
Yeah, which I can tell you really enjoy from working with you. So you started the Graygency as like a competitive advantage for doing triathlons, and then you realized you could make money from it, and then you tried to build it, but you built it in probably the wrong way because you wanted to feed your ego and seem like this really big agency. And now we realize we want this thing to be a lean, profitable scaling machine.
Yeah, and I think that was it. And a lot of the decisions made was like, it was pure ego at play. And I think it's because like, if you don't come from agency world, the only vision you get of an agency world is like the external view. And a lot of the time you're looking at bigger agencies, they have big teams, they have nice offices, but nobody ever talks about the bottom lines of these agencies. And as you're aware, probably better than most, is that like so many of these are just burning cash because they want to have that illusion. And I wasn't making anywhere near enough money to afford the office that we're in. And it was like probably, I don't know, like 30% of our like turnover was going on this office. Yeah. And then there's like a ton of staff that you're probably paying over the odds for because you have no idea what they cost. So you just say yes. And then all of a sudden you're like, are we actually making any money? Like I'm working a lot, but am I making any money? And then eventually you kind of get smacked with that, and you start to think a bit more strategically as a business owner at like, okay, the goal of this business is to to make money and to grow the right way.
Yeah. And like we were talking before this, and I said something that I think is interesting for everyone else to hear here. Um, I, I think that we think that a lot of agencies that we see on the interwebs, on the internet out there, that are hitting us with their ads on Facebook, they're much larger than they actually are. Like there's very few 8-figure agencies out there. I can count like that I know on one or maybe two hands. And I know a lot of agency owners. So most agencies are kind of stuck around that low 7-figure. It's very difficult to get to the 8-figure, but we want to feel like we're there. So we want to like have this large headcount, all these things, all these complex systems and complex people.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first question. Like people always ask you, like, they say like, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, I run an agency." "How many people do you have?"
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, why is that a barometer of how good we are as an agency? And of course you can bloat it out with like offshore staff, or you can like have like, reams and reams of like layers of bureaucracy, but nobody ever, that's always the first question when like people ask about the agency world, or agency owners ask about the agency world. It's like, how many headcount do you have? And in my head, I'm like, the idea of being responsible for like 100 people's mortgage every month is like, I don't want that.
A lot.
Like I've got enough things like that that are immediate. Like I've got 2 kids, and we'll come to the fact that there's like a 3rd kid on the way. Like I just don't have the bandwidth to think about like 100 people's mortgages and have brands paid us on time so that we can, hit payroll and all that stuff. So I'm kind of like really in that mode of, we want to build these really focused operational machines that are highly profitable. We can look after our people and we can do incredible work. And I think that's been the big thing with working with you, is that like your systems align with that goal. And that's why I think we've probably gelled really well with that, working in that manner, because you're all about like, building these teams that are profitable, that make you money, but also allows you to retain staff. And I think we'll probably come on to that a bit later, right?
Yeah. And we could talk about that topic forever, but in the interest of time for our viewers, you mentioned that you're about to have your 3rd child. How has that, and how is like generally being a parent influence how you're thinking about building your agency?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because before having kids, I would have approached it as like, and I did approach it in that way, in that I worked 7 days a week, probably worked, on a weekend, maybe I'd work 8 hours, but on a weekday, I'd be working sort of anywhere between 12 and 15 hours a day. Like I was all in, and I was doing that for a long time. And then having kids, I started to realize that there's certain freedoms that I wanted for myself and that my business could provide for me. So like I don't miss dinner, and I don't miss bedtime, like golden rules. I don't miss gymnastics on a Wednesday afternoon, and I can design my calendar around this so that my business allows me to do it. And because I wanted that very much for me, it also became kind of a driver for the business, that I want that for my team. So I want my team to have hobbies. I want my team to have passions outside of work. And I want them to be able to, go to a Pilates class during the day because it's less busy than at 5 o'clock. Like giving people that freedom whereby you can work in a really good job with really good brands and do great work, but also have a life around it. And that kind of shaped my vision for it, is that like, I don't want our team to get to the point where they have kids and they feel like they can't work here anymore because you're pressured to go to after work drinks every Friday. Like, no, we're building a model where, you can enjoy the best of everything and do really good work.
Yeah. So it's like building your business around your life, not building your life around your business.
Yeah. And again, probably a hard lesson learned from going the other way. I think burning out probably a few times along the way, but then like getting that clarity and being really, really deliberate in terms of how we approach things.
But let's get a little bit tactical on that. So how did you go about doing that process? Did you sit around, like, I know how you did it, but for our listeners, like, how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, I guess the short answer is I dropped you a message saying, Carl, I'm feeling a bit burnt out. I feel like I'm unbalanced. How do I do it? But I think the biggest breakthrough for me actually came with that, the perfect calendar and setting ground rules with that. I think I've talked to you about this a lot before, but like that system of designing my week around the things that are crucial for me. So putting the time blocks in to basically like be there for family, be there for work. And I think probably the biggest time block that wasn't there in my calendar was like be there for myself. And it works as like a triangle. If the triangle isn't in balance, you're not in balance, and you can be there for your family and you can be there for all of your colleagues and the brands that you're working with. But if you're not looking after yourself, eventually that system breaks down. So being really deliberate with blocking time out to ride my bike or go for a run, blocking time out to be home for dinner so that clients can't book me between 5 and 7, and then sort of strategically booking when I'm having my client meetings during the day, and going down to even to that point of what are the key things that are going to move us forward in our business. So if people have seen my LinkedIn, they'll see that I normally post at 2:00 most days. It's because I have a time block before that in my calendar that every day, there's time set to writing LinkedIn posts, to uploading, to engaging. And I'm very good with routine, and I function best with routine. So having that calendar in place is just I think Christina, my partner, she really noticed it. She's like, you just have this, you're so much more in balance now. And she could really feel it. And it's just so simple as getting my Google Cal out, organizing it, what's important, what do I need to do, and then sticking to that.
I really like the triangle. I'm going to take that actually. So basically what you did, just for people listening, is you number one, blocked off what was important to you. So for yourself and for your family, because that's how we build the business around us, not the opposite. And then we take a look at what are the most important things that we need to be doing during the day, given our long-term goals. And then we just block time off for that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Simple. It sounds so simple, right? And then you try and do it and it takes a week. So when we first connected in February, and it's August 15th as of today. So you're doing pretty good revenue that most agency owners will be happy with. And I remember you saying though that you were getting stuck in the business though, and you wanted to be more above the business. Can you paint a picture of what that looked like back then in the day to day?
Yeah. I think this is typical kind of solo founder built something from the beginning, that you're so focused on the product and you're so in love with the business that you put extra pressure on yourself and you don't like to delegate, and it's overwhelming. So what would always happen is would focus on marketing, new business would come in, we would then onboard the new brands. I would then get dragged into the day-to-day of it with the team. Then all of a sudden our pipeline would slow down because I'm too involved in the day-to-day, and that means I took my eye off marketing. And it was just it was a yo-yo of new business, getting really busy, finally kind of getting to a stable point, and then all of a sudden the pipeline is empty because you've not done any marketing in the last and this would go on for 3 months at a time. Mm-hmm. And then there's you don't have the time to really plan out recruitment. So then you're making knee-jerk recruitment decisions. And I think, we both know that I've probably made some really bad recruitment decisions over the last, 12 months. Just because it's you get to that point where you're shit, I just need people who can do the work. And it's so reactive. So that was really and then because you've made the mistakes with recruitment, you then get even more dragged into the project, because it's you have to come in as this firefighter to save the project or to improve the project. And then, I just felt like it was a roller coaster, and I just had no time to really do anything strategic. It was always just a lot of running within the business. And I think that's a really hard loop to get out of as a founder. It really is. And I had no idea how to do it. Because the only way is the way that you've done.
Yeah. So you hit a few key terms there that I've heard in other conversations too, where it's the yo-yo back and forth, the roller coaster between sales and recruiting and operations, and the seesaw that goes up and down. So what was the moment, if you had one, or was it a combination of moments where you realized that something fundamentally had to change?
I think it comes from enjoyment in the business, that when you've got good people in your business and they're also kind of suffering from the seesaw. We've got great people in our company. They do great work. They're so intelligent. But it's when it's this seesaw of exciting new brand comes in, and then it's not quite sort of getting it right in terms of the recruitment. So then other people come in who maybe don't embody the values that you necessarily have. You can see them getting affected. And then also just in my own day to day, I think that I love marketing. I'm a nerd when it comes to this, business, but I wasn't enjoying it. And I wasn't feeling like my team were progressing because I didn't have time to help them to progress. And it was just something had to change. Otherwise, it's like, what are you going to do? You're just going to stay at a plateau and just keep doing this system of like, get busy, get quiet, turn marketing up, get busy, get quiet. You know, like eventually there has to be a better way to do that that gives you more sort of stable, consistent, strategic growth.
Yeah, so it's almost a need from like yourself and from your team to kind of be self-actualized versus just always be firefighting.
Yeah, and also like when you're doing great work on client projects, like if you're not growing at the speed that you should be, you kind of have to ask the question like, why is it that we're really good at what we do? Why are we not growing at the speed that really we should be growing at? And then like kind of the glaring reality of it is actually like you might be great at delivering work, but you're not great at running like the operational side of an agency, and that's why you're not growing. And I think that was a big turning point as well. Is like, oh, like we need to figure this out, and like I have no way of like my brain doesn't necessarily work in that manner, and that's where like we needed to get a bit of help with that.
So let's shift a little bit to talking about something that I get questioned a lot on, and that is the pod and the pod system. And one of the biggest shifts that you implemented in the Graygency was restructuring your team into proper pods with pod leads. There's always a messy transition that happens when you go from a functional organization or the typical organization most agencies have into a pod structure. Walk me through what that transition looked like for you, and like how did you experience it?
Yeah. So I think the key thing with the transition, like the starting point is when you've got sort of service line delivery. So you've got paid social, you've got like PPC, and you have people working on different projects, and then they work together with different people on different projects. You have this problem of like efficiency of delivery. And it's like you see it on a Monday. It's like glaringly obvious where like you see the Slack messages like, hey, are you finished with this report? Or, hey, you finished with this report? Or I can't be on this client call because I'm booked with another client. And you just see all these like inefficiencies in the workplace. And then the decision to go with the pods was like, I think driven by your system a lot as well. But it was just building out these independent units that work really, really efficiently together. I think the starting point was really understanding how a pod should function and then taking that to the team and saying like, hey guys, like think I found a better way to do this whereby we eliminate a lot of the problems that are coming up in like our day to day. And the way that we're going to do it is we're going to empower like a pod lead to run strategy. We're going to move people into like delivery positions, so paid social lead, PPC lead. You're still incredibly important in terms of how we strategically approach projects, but we believe that by putting you in a team together, we unlock like even more like quality of work. So you kind of have that idea, which again, like your training was amazing for it. There's a lot of decisions that go into it in terms of like commercials and understanding like revenue per pod, like salary structure within pod. But again, having someone who has a really nice spreadsheet that helps you cut to the bottom of that is a cheat code.
It's clutch, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's kind of like approaching that with a team, and the response was amazing from the team. Like the team were like, yeah, we get this. Like we can see how it works. So once you've got buy-in from the team, like that's good, but that's the easy part. Like the hard part comes in like structuring transition. So where you have maybe like people working on accounts that don't necessarily fit within their pods, like how do you like transition? And like I think there's like optimum times for transition. So like when new brands come on, they go into the right pod structure, but also there's things like we were kind of a little bit fortunate. Like one of the brands we were like having a problem with like transitioning, because I think as you say, like when you transition, there's some challenges, but like they switched their marketing director. So we had an opportunity there where it was like, I could kind of help with the transition, but then we could also swap like the PPC leads, which really, really helped. But again, it's like, I think it probably took us 2.5, 3 months. And we're only just getting to that point now where it's like, everything is structured in the right way with pods as independent units without crossover. And then you've got to work on getting the teams to collaborate well. And I think that's ongoing. That's something that now we have like pod lead meetings Monday, Friday for like half an hour where we talk about like what do we need to implement from a process standpoint, how do we make our pods operate better, and then training the team to be pod leads, because they've never had that experience either. So it's like, I think that's how we approached it. And it is hard, but the payoff is unbelievable. Like, and I'm just sort of reaping the rewards of that now, I would say.
What are some of the things that you're reaping? And if there's any like metrics maybe that you could mention that you think would be important for people to hear, where you're
Um,
seeing an improvement with your team?
So we're seeing improvements in upsells, and this was a KPI that we had. And I think it comes from the fact that you've got these well-oiled machines. So you've got the teams that work together, like they all know like the approach. There's alignment on that, but then also the brands really feel like this is my team. These guys are so slick in how they work. They're so slick in how they, after post meeting, how do they send like the feedback, the agenda points. So they get this trust from the pod because they work together and it's smooth. So that then when the pod lead, who's not necessarily the one who's building ads in Meta, says, hey, there's a great opportunity for you to diversify to TikTok or Pinterest, the brands go, yeah, this person is here as my growth lead or pod lead. I trust what they're saying. Like, I'm going to go for it. So we've seen like an increase in upsells. I think also, like, we've improved margin, and we're always trying to do that, but like marginally there's definitely been improvements as well.
And then did you lose any clients in the transition?
No, no, no,
That's
no.
actually quite impressive. Usually there's a casualty or two.
Yeah, I think we were really lucky with the marketing director switch in terms of like it gave us a really good opportunity to move it over without it being obvious. I think that was really helpful. I think also the way that I did it was like we had like this natural point in terms of like we lost 2 team members at the start of the year. So that kind of coincided with like switching the pod. So we had new people coming in, and like in the interim of one of those, like I'd sort of come more client facing, which also probably helped with the transition in that I could bring pod lead in, they would be working with me, and then like sort of their role in the calls started to become more and more prominent. So it wasn't like I think that was a softer way of doing it, but I could see how there are kind of like churn risks with it. But I think that even being open with the clients about like switching the system. So we've told clients we're moving to this pod lead system and why we're doing it. And I think they really bought into it as well.
Well, that so transparency definitely helps with the
Yeah.
clients. And then if you had like one big insight for people who are thinking about switching to pods, or I call them self-directed teams now, what would you say that insight is?
I think it comes down to putting the right people in the right seats. So like
For sure.
build your pods. So your pod leads are worth their weight in gold, and look after them. They're the people who drive the strategy, but also they drive the training, so that when you're recruiting pod leads, make sure you recruit the best people that you've got that are strategic, they're passionate. But then when you're recruiting like pod members, recruit them for the future. Ask yourself the question about like, can I see this person becoming a pod lead? And if you can, that's a great sign for you, because the way that we're doing it is like the guys doing delivery at the moment, we're already like running through their PDPs so that they will be pod leads in the future. So we've got our next, 2-3 pod leads lined up. We just need to keep building, the revenue and building the pods. But I think it's about your people.
Yeah. So make sure that your pod lead is as good as you or an expert at their craft. And then that the team eventually that they're that good too, that they could be that. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges or misconceptions for how agencies traditionally are structured. We'll have an account manager who's not an expert in whatever we sell, and they're like leading a team of experts, but they don't understand what we're selling. They can't help because they don't understand. And oftentimes it's just like a game of telephone between the client and that person because they don't understand what we're selling. So this fixes that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that clients appreciate like they've got someone with an answer. They've also probably got someone with a spreadsheet that's already planned the answer to the question that they're asking. So like, yeah, one of our pod leads is she's brilliant at like forecasting and planning. So that was like a big role that she had, was like building the plans, not just for her pod, but for like our pod system. So that then when a client's like, how much money are we going to spend next month? It's like, here you go. This is what we think. This is what we think the revenue target is. And this is how you're going to break down that spend by channel. And the clients are like, wow, like you got it. And the team are like, yeah, like we have time now to think about these things and to get these documents in place. Whereas if you're just like running from client to client, service to service, you don't have time for that strategic piece. And that's like the real benefit of the pod lead, is that they shape the growth of the brands in your pods or in your teams.
So good. Such a good insight. All right, let's shift a little bit. So a month ago when we talked, you mentioned something that was really powerful because you said for the first time you're thinking about the future instead of just surviving. And we even went through an exercise on what it might look like if you were to sell your agency in the future. So what does that shift for you meant? What does that meant for you personally?
I think there's been two shifts. So there's
Hmm.
the shift in terms of being able to think more strategically. And a big part of that is like planning the growth, planning what we as an agency want to do, who we want to work with, what do we need to do to make that happen. And like, again, like working out a plan, building it into your calendar, and then just like going through it every day. So like hitting those key like core metrics to hit the outcome that you want. I think that having the time to really think about it also gives you a lot of clarity. Like there's so many like points in our journey where it's been like, we just want to onboard another client. Why do we want to onboard another client? Well, we just want to make more money. And then it's like, right, but you're bringing a retainer in, but then are you actually generating any like contribution margin, or like are you actually making money from saying yes to that project, so that you can get more strategic in terms of like, you know, is this a project that actually makes sense for us, rather than just saying yes to a lot of work because it's there and someone's offering to send you a bank transfer every month. So I think that really helps. But then also getting clear about like, partnering with the right brands, so that like if it's a short-term project for us, we'll say no, because we know that like it doesn't make sense in terms of our model, so that we want to play like, long-term games with long-term people and long-term brands. So like, can we see this brand scaling to the levels that we want a brand that we're working with to scale to? And if we can't, then we'll pass it, because it doesn't make sense to build growth for the sake of growth, or a team for the sake of building a team that potentially churns. So getting clear on that was massive. And then also like having time to think about like, what's the agency going to do next year? Like, what's our approach going to be? Like, how are we going to handle, me having a third child, like probably slowing down in terms of what I can do? Like, what do we need to do to fix that problem? And then I think the biggest thing with it is like being in a position where I didn't feel like I needed to rush from the school run to work every day and then like just jump into fires and like put them out, then all of a sudden like close the computer, rush home, be a dad, put the kids to bed, and then jump back into fires. Now it's like more time to like think about things, be present, look after myself. Like, I don't think we've talked about it, but in the last 2 months, I've probably dropped like 4.5 kilos.
That's awesome.
Do you know what I mean? That to me is like the biggest prize of the lot, is that like I've gone back to what I actually wanted to do when I set the agency up, which was like ride my bike, look after myself. But then I'm also able to do a great job. I'm able to be there for the kids. And then when it comes to the afternoons or the evenings where we've put them to bed, I can pick the laptop up. I'm fresh. I've got ideas. And the agency is like, it's progressing far better by being more in balance.
Yeah. So I remember when we first started working together, you're like, I can only spend really a couple hours a week with my kids. And then now you spend like 2 hours a day blocked off with your kids. And then you do something which is kind of crazy to me, but I love, is you bike to and from work like an hour each way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So completely different life, completely different mindset shift, completely different everything.
Yeah. And again, it's like, so the way that I looked at it was, I posted about this on LinkedIn. Like I caught myself one day getting like frustrated at bedtime with my little girl. And the reason that I was frustrated was because I'd got up, I'd worked, I'd come home at like 5, and then I really, really wanted to just like go for a run. And like, if you've got like she was 3 at the time, but she's 4 now, like 4-year-olds kind of decide when they want to sleep. And the more like tension that you have, the more they sense it, and the more they just like repel the need to sleep. And I could feel myself just getting really like annoyed that she wouldn't sleep, because it was sort of stealing my run. And then I saw a video from Dana White, and he was like, the first 2 hours of his day is sacred. Like, he was like, until he's done his training, everything can burn, and then he'll come back to it when he's finished his training. And I was like, okay, I'll give that a go. And then I was like, right, I'll bike into work. I'll bike home from work, and then I started to feel like, oh, like I can deal with anything. Like if the kids need to be put down and it takes, it takes an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours, like I can deal with that because I filled my cup up with riding to and from work. And then when they finally do sleep, because they have to sleep at some point, like I can pick up the computer, I can do the essential stuff that I need to do. And I was just like, my ability to handle stress and pressure increased just by kind of, yeah, riding my bike.
Yeah, huge, huge impact. I love it. So something a little bit different that I want to talk about is metrics. And I have these metrics that I call the core metrics. And the way that I think about metrics is that we should have the whole company focused on very simple metrics and only a handful of them. And they should be in relationship to what our clients care about. Because if we do the things that our clients care about, then long term, they're going to do the things that we want, which is stay for a long time and pay us a lot of money. Um, and then I have like a pretty standard list that I do. And some people are creative with the metrics that they like to add and change. But you mentioned one specifically called the 0% chase rate. And this is a rate where clients never have to chase you for updates. Like that's how you think about it. So how did you go about thinking about that, and how did you operationalize that?
So I think that the starting point was really understanding what clients like, what they like, or inverting that, what do they really dislike. And one of the things that kept popping up in like new business calls, or like when our clients had fired like, Amazon agencies and things like that, was that they felt like they were always chasing, and that the agency that, they were always chasing the agency for updates, or they were always chasing for ideas. And it became really clear, and it's pretty simple when you think about it. Like if you're paying for a service, the last thing you want to do is feel like you have to chase for it. So that was something that we agreed, like if we can stop clients chasing us for like, hey, we said we'd do this, like where is it, or like, hey, how's this performance, or hey, did these ads go live, then clients really get this sense of like, they've got this, we're on top of it. And the way that we implemented it was like, we started off as a team and discussed this metric and why it was important, and then we were like, right, what are the situations where a client needs to chase us? So what are the key things? So weekly report on a Monday, like does the client know when they're due to get their weekly report? Great. Like, is that weekly report going to be late? Like if it's going to be late, and being late can happen, but if you preempt that with the client with a, hey, just letting you know that like we're working on the weekly report, there's a problem with the data connector, we'll get it over this afternoon. You've preempted the chase because you've already sort of set the tone with that. And then it was like working out all of these moments within the week where clients were chasing us. And every time, like, we didn't get it right in the beginning, but every time a client chased us for something, we would log it in a Google Sheet, and then we'd have a discussion about like, okay, what do we need to put into ClickUp to prevent this from happening again? And it's just like evolved into a system of like, okay, well, this client here always chases us about ad performance on a Friday. We've seen like 3 messages from a client on a Friday that the chases about the ad performance. We now have a ClickUp task on a Thursday, like, or a Friday morning to deliver that update before they've even thought about it, because there's clearly something in their calendar where they have time to think about this stuff on an afternoon at 2:00. So we get ahead of that, and it's like, hey, been through this, have you seen this? Like, here's the updates on ads. And they're like, you just see the clients are like, oh, they listen, they get it. And that's all we've done is basically built it out in ClickUp. Every time a client has chased us, we built out a way to prevent them from chasing us again.
So you use Slack messages, you root cause analysis each Slack message and try to think, how can we prevent this from happening? And then that becomes a task in ClickUp.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
that's smart. Love
that's it. Or it's like even to the point where we work with a brand and they're not with us for TikTok, but every week they would send over their best performing TikToks, and we have access to their TikTok business manager. And then I said to the paid team, I was like, do you know what? Like, let's get ahead of that curve. And like, basically like, let's go into TikTok on a Friday. Let's pull the best ads. Let's update the Slack channel with, hey, have you seen these ads are flying? We're going to launch them in Meta ahead of the weekend. And it's just like the client's like, it's like, you just see like the emojis and the GIFs that they send. And it's just, it's not complicated, but it's just like, okay, that's an opportunity for us to like be proactive, to cut down a chase.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the team start to get into that, they really start to like engineer these like processes and ways of doing things.
So then your team is building processes for you, which leads me to my next question. because one of the things that I work on really extensively and that I talk about on LinkedIn is moving from what I call traditional SOPs into playbooks that are living documents that the team owns. And when we first started, I think you were doing like Loom, some ChatGPT transcription. You create an SOP and then you put it out for there for the team, and then nobody looks at it. So what's different now for your process creation versus what you used to do?
Yeah. So I think the starting point was like, you go through this phase of like, you're not an organized agency if you don't have an SOP. So then you're like, right, I'll start recording Loom videos. I'll probably use Scribe. I'll punch it into ChatGPT. I'll copy paste it all into a ClickUp task, and then it will live there so that if anyone asks, we've got SOPs. But nobody's, it would be funny to see like a view count of like how many times an SOP was looked at, and probably zero. So
Like one time, yeah.
yeah, like, and that was you checking it. So like that was like where we were. So it was like, we need SOPs. We've got SOPs. The only person who ever knew they existed was probably me. And then it was about getting the team to move to like playbooks. And that was like approaching like process in terms of like into the chunks, getting them to design it. I think that's a big step, is like when the team design it, it's more likely to be used than if you design it. And also,
So key.
yeah, I think also like my brain works maybe like in different ways. And it's like the way that I approach something might not be the same way that the team approaches it, or like even makes sense to a team member, because, we're all different. So like when the team are designing the playbooks, you get buy-in. This is the way that we're going to do it. This is the way that we're going to approach the delivery of this. We're going to assign the timings to each stage of the process. And it can change, but it's more of a team exercise than like someone at the top who's probably a little bit more detached saying, this is the way that you have to do it.
Yeah. Did you get any pushback from having the team time things?
A little bit. I think we always sit on I think that time tracking is always like a challenging thing. Like people don't want to feel like, how they do something is being scrutinized, how fast they can do it, or are they fast, are they slow? But I think when you start to like explain that commercially, this is why we're tracking it, this is why we approach it, but also like my team know I'm a nerd when it comes to like AI and automation. So like they know that if they document something out and then there's a way for me to look at it, I'll probably figure out a way that we can like automate a stage of it, or we can feed more data in to make their job easier. So now they kind of got behind it. Is like, if I say that this reporting takes me 3 hours on a Monday and I don't really like doing it, and I feel
You'll
like
fix it.
yeah, and it's like I'll look at it and then it's like, right, okay, guys, like this is like a golden opportunity to like improve the process. So they kind of bought into that, but also like it's how you stop your team from being run ragged is when you actually understand the time involved. Like I was talking to Steph, our creative strategist, yesterday about, we have some clients where we're on creative strategy retainers where we only write the briefs versus like we write the briefs and our team deliver the work. And in my head, like when you write creative briefs are creative briefs. But what she was really keen to sort of say is that actually when she writes them for our internal team, they take this long. And when she writes them for like brands where we're only doing the brief, actually it probably takes like 30 minutes to an hour per brief extra because of the level of detail that you need to go into. So we then started to look at like the costing of that, of our creative strategist spending say 2 hours on a brief versus our creative strategist spending an hour on a brief and a designer spending 30 minutes or an hour on a brief. And actually external briefs where we don't do the creative work should cost more than us delivering the work because of the level of detail that needs to go into the brief. And by having that process mapped out, you see it and then you go, wow, we're undercharging for like creative briefs, and that's what comes from having the playbooks in place.
Yeah. There's such like transparency, and I think the team owning it is the biggest part of a playbook that has the most positive impact for the agency owners that I work with too. It's like you're no longer the bottleneck in process creation. Your team like actively looks for ways to improve process.
Yeah. And I think that when you get to that point, it's amazing.
All right. So last question. You've been here for a while, so thank you for this. So what's the long-term vision for the Graygency, and what most excites you about where you're headed?
I love what we're doing. And I think it changes quite regularly. Like in my head, there's an exit.
Yeah.
And, that's always the goal of an agency owner, is that you build it to a point and you sell it. And then you ride off into the sunset. But I also understand that, like, if ever I was to sell the Graygency, like, what would I do after? And it's like, well, probably start something pretty similar. Like, I need a business that works around my life, that allows me to do what I want to do, that I have great people around me. And then, so like, part of me is like build to sell, but then another part of me is like keep growing, keep working with exciting brands, keep developing like great marketers. And that's something I'm so passionate about, is like the training that we do internally, is like bringing people in, committing to making them better at the platforms that they're using, but also like understanding how businesses function, understanding the unit economics behind e-commerce businesses. And I think that's really rewarding now, is like seeing our team being able to communicate at a different level. Maybe one day, if a really good offer comes, I'd love to sell it. But at the moment, I'm just having a blast like growing it.
Yeah, you really enjoy being able to like coach and train people and see the results from that. Much like I do. That's my favorite part of my day. And then like long term, I don't think anybody's ever said I want to sell my business so I can go start a startup so I can work less. Like you're going to work way more with a new business than you are in your current business too.
Yeah. And I'm like the way that technology's changing, like I love the tech side of what we do. And I'm like, this is such a cool time to be doing what we're doing, and to be able to have a business that, you know, is able to react to it, is to be able to develop product. Like, I love that side of it. And I just think I'm learning more than ever at the moment. And I mean, that's like, if you're learning more than ever, you're developing, you're in balance, then like, you know, you sell it, what happens? So, you know, like at the moment, like we probably spoke last week about selling, and now I'm like, I just want to keep growing it. Like, you know, keep bringing great people in, you know, keep riding my bike, keep spending time with my kids, you know,
What
keep
else do you
working.
need, man? Like that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Andy, thank you so much for joining me. It's been such a pleasure. Thoroughly enjoy working with you one on one. And if anybody wants to find you, where should they go?
I'm on LinkedIn. I think if you've been on LinkedIn, you can probably just search like Andy Gray or the Graygency. You can find us on there. That's where I spend most of my time. That's where I hang out. That's where I drop a lot of the random thoughts that cross my mind about marketing.
You have very interesting random thoughts too. So you should go check them out. All right, Andy, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you as well. Like, I don't miss dinner, and I don't miss bedtime, like golden rules. I don't miss gymnastics on a Wednesday afternoon, and I can design my calendar around this so that my business allows me to do it. And because I wanted that very much for me, it also became kind of a driver for the business, that I want that for my team. So I want my team to have hobbies. I want my team to have passions outside of work. And I want them to be able to, you know, go to a Pilates class during the day because it's less busy than at 5 o'clock. Like, giving people that freedom whereby you can work in a really good job with really good brands and do great work, but also have a life around it. And that kind of shaped my vision for it, is that like, I don't want our team to get to the point where they have kids and they feel like they can't work here anymore because you're pressured to go to after work drinks every Friday. Like, no, we're building a model where, you know, you can enjoy the best of everything and do a really good work.
Yeah, so it's like building your business around your life, not building your life around your business.
And it's pretty simple when you think about it. Like, if you're paying for a service, the last thing you want to do is feel like you have to chase for it. So that was something that we agreed. Like, if we can stop clients chasing us for like, hey, we said we'd do this, like, where is it? Or like, hey, how's this performance? Or hey, did these ads go live? Then clients really get this sense of like, they've got this, we're on top of it. And the way that we implemented it was like, we started off as a team and discussed this metric and why it was important. And then we were like, right, what are the situations where a client needs to chase us? So what are the key things? So weekly report on a Monday. Like, does the client know when they're due to get their weekly report? Great. Like, is that weekly report going to be late? Like, if it's going to be late, and being late can happen, but if you preempt that with the client with a, hey, just letting you know that like we're working on the weekly report, there's a problem with the data connector, we'll get it over this afternoon. You've preempted the chase because you've already sort of set the tone with that.